you tell just by looking at me?
Can you tell just by looking at me?
So can you tell by looking at me that I'm an Iraq War vet?
Would you guess that I am a pro bodybuilder?
I'm an avid college basketball fan.
I love Bruce Lee films.
I am half redneck.
I used to be a chubby kid.
Would you have guessed that I'm a swimmer?
That I'm Catholic.
I did not learn how to speak English until I was in 2nd grade.
Just by looking at me, you wouldn't know that I was the first in my immediate family to graduate high school.
So would you guess that I'm undocumented and then that I got a degree from Haas Business School?
Would you assume?
What many people assume is that I'm happy, but many people don't realize that I'm scared.
I'm afraid of being misunderstood.
We're all afraid of something. We're all insecure about something.
Yeah, I wake up every day with the fear of deportation.
Lots of us are just afraid of what we don't know.
Don't assume, ask what you don't know.
You don't know about Islam? Ask me questions. Won't offend me.
And if you ask me, I'm Filipino.
I'm Apache and Comanche.
I'm very much proud of my spirituality.
I am a she.
I am a he.
I'm straight.
I'm a lesbian.
I am a husband. I am trans.
I am a 3-time cancer survivor.
I'm Mexican Chinese. I'm gay.
I am a proud Muslim.
I am an ally.
I am an ally.
Not only am I an ally, I'm a champion.
My truth does not have to be someone else's truth, but they are still true.
So we're asking you to tell us who you are.
Be seen and be recognized.
Be part of a more diverse and more inclusive culture.
Help us move forward together.
Because together, we are Salesforce.
Juntos somos Ellevest.
We are Ohana.
And Salesforce welcomes all.
Can I hug you? Okay.
Please welcome South African TV and radio broadcaster, Tumelo Mototowane.
Hi. How's everyone doing? Oh my goodness, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, I am Tumelo Mototowane, and I'm really excited about this one, and I have to be biased because I am female, I am a woman, and I look forward to any conversation that has to do with diversity as well as equality, because it's a universal problem that we're seeing, whereby there's still lack of diversity and inequality still roaming and mushrooming, regardless of everything that's been done by UN Women to try and have inclusivity, regardless of policies in different parts of the world. We're still seeing those challenges. So I'm really excited about that. But I don't know, how did you feel about that video? I felt like hugging someone. They're like, do you want to hug? I'm like, I'm here, I'm right here. But I'm not alone, indeed. I'm joined by, fabulous, fantastic, successful, and intentional women that will be moving this conversation with us. And I'm hoping that you will take something out of this conversation, which you can implement in your own organizations and your own lives. So without any further ado, I'm going to please call upon the stage Ms. Stacey Brown, Sheila Lino Marcelo, Sally Krochek, as well as Sarah Freer. Please give them a warm round of applause. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much, ladies, for allowing me to be in conversation with you. I mean, we were having just a fireside conversation, and I got to understand how this topic is important to all of you, even going through your profiles and your websites, and the work that you do basically in your organizations and communities to ensure that there's more diversity as well as equality. And I think this conversation as well, I was left inspired in the previous session around representation matters, to see that even though we are quite optimistic, there's still challenges and there's still loopholes that need to be filled. So I want to start this conversation asking each and every one of you just to tell us more about your business model, but also why it was your intention to ensure that you advocate for equality. Sally?
Well, thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here with everyone talking about what I think is a really incredibly important topic. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Ellevest. Ellevest is a digital-first investing platform for women. We are trying to let the research take us where it takes us, and it tells us that diverse teams outperform teams that are based on meritocracy. That diversity drives higher returns, lower risk, greater innovation, higher client engagement, higher employee engagement, all good things. And so we're building Ellevest as a diverse company following the research. Our engineering team today, unlike others, is majority women. We are 48% people of color. We well over-index on the LGBTQIA community within our company. And we're trying to do it by having investors like Salesforce Ventures who are aligned with our mission, because we believe we're going to be successful and want to get those returns to them. And then our mission is to help women invest. I also did not think women needed their own investing platform. I also thought it was sort of a dumb, maybe sexist idea. But when you recognize that women don't invest as much as men do, I thought I need to, given that I've had this career I can't believe I've had on Wall Street, I need to try to fix this, because if we can get women investing more, then we give them more degrees of freedom in their own lives, so that they can go out and start the companies they want to start, or they can leave the jerk boss they want to leave, or they can leave the relationship they don't want to be in, and help society. There's nothing bad that happens that I have yet thought of when women have more money. And so I would say we've got as big a mission as that today we wouldn't be in a Me Too Time's Up moment if women had as much money as men do, which means if women had as much power as men do. So for us, the power of equality and diversity and inclusion is baked into, as best we can make it, everything we do at Ellevest.
Sarah, is it the same for you? But I know while you answer that question that I can expect more of a community-centered approach as well, because it's quite close to Nextdoor's heart.
Yeah, so thank you. So for those of you that don't know Nextdoor, hopefully you're all on Nextdoor. Nextdoor's purpose is to empower neighbors everywhere across the globe to build stronger local communities. And today we're in 11 countries, so we're on our journey. But what's important about community is made up of diverse people. So it's both the diversity of your neighbors. We think there's tremendous power in proximity over preference. So if you think about what a lot of other networks have created is I have my friend network, I have my professional network, but I get to choose most of them. But neighbors are a little bit like your family. You just don't get to pick them, right? But that's the beauty of the diversity of the folks who live around you. And we believe that when neighbors come together, really great things happen. So Nextdoor is there to help you find out what's going on, like is the power going to be on in Marin this weekend? To help you get things done. So anything from getting a babysitter to a plumber, but also things like, I just got back from Australia, people saying, I'm lonely. I have had this devastating thing happen in my life. I'd love to get together with people like me. And then finally, with all that utility, actually creating affinity. So I have a neighborhood I can rely on. And that's where we want to bring more kindness into neighborhoods, help people have tough conversations, sometimes about things they really disagree on, but where they have something in common, which is they want their community to be stronger and healthier. And I'm sure we can get into more of that.
Absolutely. And when you're talking about a Nextdoor, you remind me, growing up in South Africa, what happens is if you're going on holiday, and usually, in my childhood, when you went on holidays, visiting your grandparents, it wasn't really going to the beach or anything like that. It was visiting your grandparents with your other cousins, and then you go back to school. But I know there was a culture as well of having to turn on your lights in the evening and your neighbors just kind of like watch your house. Yes. That communal kind of sensitive sensitivity within the community that we're seeing there. And it comes with diversity as well. But Stacey, I want to talk to you about also your business model and why it was important for TaskRabbit to also implement, or rather advocate for equality.
Yeah, so TaskRabbit, I hope people have used TaskRabbit. If you hadn't, it will change your life. But TaskRabbit is a task management network that helps busy people hire high-quality, trusted taskers to help them get things done around the home. And our business is about neighbors helping neighbors. So what Sarah just talked about with like finding a plumber, like we can help you find somebody to get that thing done for you around your home. And what we've done is we create meaningful economic opportunities for people Our mission is to make everyday life easier for everyday people. And it's not just the ease that you get from having someone else clean your house, but it's the easier life that somebody has by earning an extra $300 or $400 on our platform because they found some work that they wouldn't otherwise be able to find. And so equality comes in all shapes and sizes, but we are trying to create better communities, more sustainable communities, more equal communities by matching people who have great skills with people who need to get things done.
Yeah.
That's the essence and the ethos and the core of what we've built. So equality and diversity and how we've built the company has had to follow all of that mission. 55% of our company are women, 60% of our leadership team are women. We've got great stats internally, but also among our tester community, we empower women in the community to find meaningful income. Many women, on average, you earn $35 an hour on TaskRabbit. But many women earn more than that because they're handy women and they can do like light electrical work, a lot of things that they might not have access to. So part of our job and part of our mission is to really create diverse communities, equal communities for all people.
Right. Let us come to you as well.
So I'm Mariam Nafisi, and I'm the CEO of Minted.com. I'm the founder and CEO of Minted, and we do very much care about artists and consumers. We are a design marketplace that sells wall art and stationery designs. Maybe some of you have used us for wedding invitations, holiday cards, wall art. I would say that the entire company was founded on the idea of true meritocracy. I think it comes a little bit from my personal experience. I'm a two-time entrepreneur, but also an immigrant to the US and care very much about access to opportunity and very much believe that this is a place that we can do that. The way that Minted works is that designers and artists from all over the world who in some cases have absolutely no access to arts education, to software, to tools, many of whom are self-taught, enter our design competitions, and then you are invited to tell us what we should sell. And that voting process is completely blinded so that you can't tell who has submitted anything. You don't know their name, you don't know their race, their gender, and the true talent always rises to the top. And what's remarkable is how much people who have really no access and no training are actually winning these competitions over people who've actually had serious arts education in some cases. It's truly, truly, truly about talent. So we employ 500 people in San Francisco. We have a community of 20,000. About 85% are women. Half of those people are moms. And right now, there's probably someone sitting in a living room or a kitchen somewhere sketching something, hoping to bring their art to market, hoping to break through and bring their work to the market and really be able to follow their passion. And that's what Minted does.
Yeah.
Can I just say something? That was just a beautiful moment of leadership and women in action, because we just rolled with that whole, I don't know if you noticed, but Miriam was so graceful, boom, straight in. And Tamela was like, gosh, like I needed the update, and you did such a nice job of just segueing. So cheers to my panelists. Because we said coming on stage, don't worry, whatever comes at us,
exactly.
We can take it. So thank you.
So this is a clear case of women empowerment and women is right here. And I'd like you all then to just dive in here, not wait for me to have a Q&A back and forth with you, but let's talk then about the consequences of not investing in equality within the workplace. I mean, Sheila, you spoke beautifully about, the different, numbers you have and as far as representing mothers, representing women, but that's your company, that's your organization. The rest of the world probably has, different numbers in terms of, the men and, women gender parity and, gender pay, which is still a very contentious issue around the world. Having more women representation, having diversity, different cultures, languages, that's still an issue. But what do you think contributes to that? And also, what do you think are the consequences, therefore, of not even investing in equality?
Well, let me take it from my old industry, which is Wall Street, where today Wall Street is a meritocracy. And today, 98% of mutual fund dollars are managed by men, overwhelmingly white men. 90% of traders are men, overwhelmingly white men. 86% of financial advisors are men, overwhelmingly white men. Look, I love men. I've been married to a couple of them. I think they're... And so I know they are very talented.
Yeah.
But 98%, 90%, and 86%, right? Particularly when the research actually tells us that women are as good or better investors than men. And so clearly, you know, the industry has chosen comfort of working with people like themselves, inertia of working with people like themselves, as opposed to diversifying, you know, the field. Now, let me tell you why you should care. We should care because, gosh, those are terrific, engaging, challenging, exciting, well-paying jobs, and why shouldn't everybody have access to them? But I'll tell you the other reason every one of us should care, and this is not getting enough attention. Because I want everybody in this room who believes that the financial crisis would have been worse if the trading floor is 90% men were half women. If the trading floor is overwhelmingly Caucasian, were 40, 45% people of color. Raise your hand high if you think the financial crisis would have been worse. Nobody. And the research actually tells us that homogenous teams overtrust each other. And so Wall Street, which went into the downturn white, male, and middle-aged, actually came out whiter, male, or middle-ageder. And yet we as a society have really not remarked upon this, but instead fall back into the best and the brightest, the cream rise to the top, et cetera. So why we should care is as shareholders to get the higher returns, as decent people to give those opportunities to others, but as citizens of the country because of the safety of the economy.
Yeah, and where I thought you were going to go was actually also just the quality of the product, the end product, right? Without diversity of perspective and opinion and all of that, you just don't ultimately get the best product. And so when I sit in my seat, if we don't have diversity in our engineering teams, in our product teams, in our machine learning teams, and so on, how can we possibly build a product that actually, for us, remember, we're selling out to communities, and communities are the world, right? So they are 50-50 gender. They have all the exact same, every stat you look at by country is how our customers should look, because that's who lives in a neighborhood. And so it's really an imperative to make sure that we're building the best product. That's why you need the best team. With the best product, you'll get the best product market fit. With the best product market fit, you'll have the best business model. With best business model, you have best shareholder returns, right? This is the cycle that we need to put in place. And it is so odd to me that despite the research, people still scratch their head about, like, how can I make my business perform better when one of the most obvious things in front of them is have a more diverse workforce.
It's like one of those memes.
Completely agree.
Where,
it's like
it's where the memes where they say, how can I make my business better? Diversity. Huh. Diversity. I don't know. I guess we'll never know.
But it's an expectation now. So yes, you get a better business and a better product. We seek to represent the communities that we're operating in. We're a people-powered business. People are showing up at your house every day. If we don't have proximate understanding of who those people are, how can we even build an operation and a service that even works?
And I think there are more and more actual statistical numbers to actually prove that diversity actually creates better business and better outcomes.
Absolutely.
You know, for us, we know that talent comes from unexpected places, and that's why the whole business model was founded around sourcing from everyone in an open fashion. But the statistics are telling us that often the winning designs and the best voted and the best selling are the ones coming from those without a formal education.
Right.
And so diversity means a lot of things, including socioeconomic diversity and educational diversity, and allowing these different voices around to come out, you know, and come to the surface.
Yeah, but someone perhaps may be sitting in this audience and thinking, where do I even begin? Perhaps I'm a new CEO, perhaps I'm, you know, a women CEO amongst a pool of men, perhaps I've just entered an organization, or I've been fighting for my seat at the table, or, you know, to be with the guys or the boys at the, you know, rugby, you know, socializing export. I just got here. Where do I begin? What do I do? How do I even start to make sure that there's more inclusivity and diversity?
Well, let's look at what's happening today, which I think most CEOs get this. They read the research, they believe in this, I believe, they talk about it at town halls, and they see this opportunity and they see, I think, the risk to their business. And then they go back to work and they engage in something called active inertia, which is let's do what we do and let's do more of it. And so therefore, we're going to double down on the mentoring group, and we're going to hire more people at early stages, and we're going to sponsor people, you know, and we're going to. And as if by doing the same thing that you've done before is enough to change it, and that it's really just getting a few more people of color into the entry level, and that then they will be good enough to make it through. I have really gotten to the conclusion that number one, middle management is where diversity goes to die, and that when the CEO gets it, that when he or she throws it to middle management and says, now, promote diverse people, that a lifetime of socialization overcomes that directive, because I just so intuitively know that that person who looks just like me is going to be more successful than the research says someone different will be. And if there are no real consequences, then they keep doing what they're doing. And so I've come to the conclusion that CEOs just need to break the wheel and do things that are radically different, such as we've done at Ellevest. When we start to become undiverse, which for us is we're hiring another white woman, then I just make the team, we're just not gonna hire. If we can't find, well, we don't wanna lower the bar, that's BS, right? And the fact that we've interviewed 10 people. Well, the research tells us that for someone who's in the majority, to be promoted, in this case white males, they're promoted based on potential, because people in the majority, I can see what he's going to do. But people who are in the minority, in this case, people of color, women of color, are promoted based on achievement. So the bar is higher for this group. But our biases tell us that it's lower, tells it's in a different place. And so that's why I have a lot of regard for Mark and just closing his gender pay gap, not saying we want to do it and having a town hall on it and talking about it and putting in the newsletter, but we're just going to friggin' do it.
Yeah. So what we're talking about is just being intentional. Yeah. I believe you accomplish what you measure. You don't write it down, you don't accomplish it. And being intentional is not just doing the things to build the pipeline. I fundamentally believe that we have to still build the pipeline, but it's also being intentional as a CEO on assuming that we have to do something at the top that trickles down to the rest of the company. And so at TaskRabbit, look at me. People are gonna be attracted to TaskRabbit because I'm diverse. Black, I'm a woman, obviously. But that doesn't mean I sit there and say, well, you know what, now we've solved the diversity problem at the company. No, we still go through, and are we looking at diverse hiring slates for every candidate, for every role that we have that's coming in? Are we making sure we're creating an inclusive environment in the company? So everybody goes through unconscious bias training. Nobody interviews in our company who doesn't go through it, because we all have biases, every single one of us that we bring to the table. Everybody thinks about how do we build a diverse team inside the company. And we do it because we have to be intentional in what we do. We're not doing it because it's the right thing to do. We're doing it because that's gonna make our company a whole lot better. And so the intent has to be throughout the company, not just with the recruiting team, not just with the hiring manager, but with the CEO, the leadership team, and everybody inside the company.
Yeah, it's almost a sandwich. So at the top, what are you doing with your board? Our board is 50-50 male-female. We have a lot of room to still go on people of color. It is, I think you can't be what you can't see. So I think you do need to make sure you have role models across the leadership spectrum. And I actually think if you kind of asked the question about what do you do, it's this, when you get back to the atomic unit of you, one of the things, I came from Wall Street, so I'd worked in South Africa on a mine, I'd been in Wall Street, I got to tech, I was like, wow, look how diverse this place is. No, I'm joking. But I remember in that moment of being in a startup that was very low on the female side, making a big deal out of the fact that I was leaving to go to the kids' school concert or whatever thing. Not because I really cared. No one needed to know where I was going. I could have just made it a meeting on my calendar, but I was actually trying to send a signal of it's okay to have to balance lots of things. In the end, we're gonna set you goals, and I actually don't care how you accomplish them. Shame on me if you can go on vacation 6 days a week and you work for 3 hours on day 7. I just set the wrong goal. But I'm gonna set you a goal. And so I think things like FaceTime, asking people to stay late at night, getting anxious if there's not enough people after 6 o'clock, these are all anxiety things you have to throw away, and instead just set really clear goals that ratchet up to making your company successful, but then allow people the glorious flexibility and creativity of how they get to that goal. I think on the way up, you said, at Nextdoor, we talk about DIBS, diversity, inclusion, and belonging. I actually think it should be PID. So it's belonging, inclusion, and then diversity. Because if you're just hiring people into a place that doesn't look like them or feel like them, it becomes a leaky bucket very quickly. So that was a huge learning to me. Even inside your company, we looked at engineering, and it kind of looked okay. But if you had 100 engineers and 30 of them were female, but they were kind of spread throughout, they actually never felt that feeling of belonging. Versus if you could make a pod of at least over 30% on gender were women, that created a much greater sense of inclusivity. So even within your numbers, don't just look at the averages, because they often belie what's actually going on under the hood.
Yeah, and I think one important lesson I've learned over time is that people, when they see data information, when they're reasonable people who are pretty motivated, they can act. But if they don't have information, if they're left out of the information flow and they're missing key information, they can't make decisions that elevate them over time through the company's ranks. So if there is one thing to think about what corporate leaders can do better, it's to have both men and women mentoring others within the organization to provide them with those sort of tips and tricks and like sort of the hidden information within companies that people need to understand in order to understand how a company works, how to move up in the ranks, how to get things done. Those things that are really not written down anywhere, that hidden information flow, or if you're an entrepreneur, understanding how to raise capital. There's a whole art to raising capital in many rounds. And a lot of it isn't written down. So as women or as underrepresented minorities, oftentimes you're kept out of the information flow because a lot of that's exchanged casually. So as we gain people and put people into these ranks, how do we continuously try to get that information out to those coming up? That's really critical to success and changing the sort of the makeup of corporate and entrepreneurial leadership.
Right. The makeup is critical, and also, the term DIB or BID, the belonging, inclusivity, as well as diversity, it pops up in my next question, because there's a term, even in South Africa, called fronting. And I'm not sure it's a global term, but basically in South Africa, there's what we call the Black Economic Empowerment Policy, where companies are expected to have, some black representation, especially if they would love to, offer services to government or to, other companies. It needs to have that clear indication that the black majority of South Africans are represented in their company. But critics have criticized that policy to say they have seen evidence of companies that would find, black fronts, or perhaps the name of the company may sound black or South African. However, there's no genuine equality. But some people say, hey, as long as they're the seat at the table, who cares if they are involved in management or not, if they are participating. But if they're getting shares, at least someone's having a piece of bread somewhere in the company. And I want to know if you think that is equality or not. If you think, first of all, if fronting is also an issue in other parts of the world, if you're seeing those elements of non-genuinity when it comes to equality, but also if you feel that, is this a seat at the table?
Well, look, I don't think you can let perfect be the enemy of the good. And I really don't know anything about, what you're speaking about. But you do often get the, right, quotas. I heard of a company once that had quotas and they had a tough quarter, right? And so where, you look for reasons and excuses, and again, alongside lowering the bar. We'd love to do this, but we don't want to lower the bar. We'd love to hire someone who brings diversity to the table, but we have to have the best person for the team. And so the best person for the team happens to be the one who went to an Ivy League college the same way we did, who went to, who trained in the same place we did, who looks like us, talks like us, belongs to the same golf clubs. And so people set that trap. The other trap that is set is we need someone who's a cultural fit. A cultural fit can mean someone who thinks just like us and therefore is not diverse. And so I propose, as we think about the way we're building Ellevest, is we don't look for a cultural fit, we look for a cultural add. Someone who can shift the culture of the company, because we don't want a static culture. We want one that represents our users and represents our country. And we also, I won't let people say the best person, for the job. that it's got to be the best person for the team. And that when we set out, it could well mean that we don't hire the person who had an A+ average at, I don't know, Princeton. Then maybe we're hiring someone who had an A- average at, the University of Virginia. But that as we look, I almost sort of lay out what are we missing on our team right now? Do we have too many women? It'd be good to have a guy. Do we have too many introverts? We need an extrovert. Do we have too many people with finance experience? We need some marketing experience. Do we have too many Caucasians? We need a person of color. And that actually makes hiring much harder because you're looking to fill gaps that you don't have. But when you blindly go for just the best person, then you're often just going for yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes back to, I know what you're talking about, because having been in South Africa in '96, right after apartheid, I saw a lot of this beginning.
Right.
And I think all of us probably break out in hives at the idea of any sort of putting people in place just for the sake of, particularly we find it as women sometimes, oh, she just got the job because she's a woman, right? We do not want that sort of bias because it demeans everyone's abilities. But I think where Sally's going is right. It's really saying, what are the core values of my company that we honor and we value? At Nextdoor, our #1 core value is earn trust every day. If we lose the trust of our member base, we're nothing. So we make sure you're always verified in your neighborhood. We make sure when you post with your real name and real address. There's no bots. But the second core value is invest in community, because this is what we're all about. And we've debated the ordering of those two, but I think it has to be trust and then community. And then when you get into an interview situation, you're really getting into I also don't like the word cultural fit. Like can't hire them, they're not a cultural fit. I'm like, I don't know what that means. That just means they weren't like you.
Yeah.
Instead, I mean, the great thing about having invest in community as a core value is it's so easy to ask someone, what do you do in your community, right? Do you belong to the PTA? Have you started, are you part of a nonprofit? It's really hard to fake, actually. So it's a beautiful way to always link back to what are the core values of this company that we believe will make us successful, and are the people we're bringing in part of that? And I think Sally's right. I actually think there's a joyousness, actually, in the smorgasbord of your team of looking at it and saying, okay, what do we now need next? And it's the diversity, not just of all the slices and dices that we normally go through of gender and race and sexual orientation, but also just who's the jokester? I'm super serious. If you surround me by people that are super serious, we're all gonna be bored as hell because there's gonna be no fun. And so I think even that is a big part of being a leader is how's that team gonna gel?
Yeah, it really does come down to the culture that you're trying to create. We, when I was at Google, we looked at culture fit a lot, and then we decided that was a wrong way to interview. And so we changed the interview process to make sure that we were interviewing on the things that really mattered. At TaskRabbit, our #1 core value is caring deeply. So nobody gets into the company who doesn't care deeply. And there are questions about what that really means. It's not about culture fit, it's about what does it mean to really care about the communities that we're in. And so when we interview for that, you really get to the core and the essence of who a person is. So then you create an environment that supports that culture. So to go back to your question about how do these things happen? How does fronting or something like that happen? It's because somewhere along the way it gets tolerated.
Yeah.
And we don't tolerate that at our company. And the more leaders who can step up and not tolerate that behavior, the better off we'll be. So you don't come to TaskRabbit because you should be there or you fit some criteria. You come because you're gonna be great for the company, you're gonna do something great for the world, and you love our values and you respect our values. Right. And so there's this amount of tolerance that I think happens that allows for things to say, oh, well, we really need to hire somebody now because we've been looking for this person for 9 months and oh my God, let's just fill this role. Yeah. And that's tolerance. That's a form of tolerance. And what I would say is, no, let's find the best person for the job who meets all the criteria that we want. And if it takes an extra 3 months, then that's okay. And that's that's intolerance.
Yeah. And by the way, that's a great leader moment to take the stress out of your team. Because I'm always like, you're shopping hungry. You're about to come home with sushi and roast beef all on the same plate. It's not going to work. But that is a big leader moment to take the pressure off because people shop hungry a lot, particularly in recruiting.
Yeah. I think to fight sort of tokenism, and I think you're talking about being used as a token, and I think as one of there are not too many female entrepreneurs, sadly, out there. So I know what you mean when you're pulled into something and put on stage or in a photograph because they need one woman in the photograph. I know exactly what you mean. It's happened to all of us, I'm sure. You fight tokenism with authenticity, and I think. For us at Minted, it's really about trying to find hidden talent. The talent really comes from unexpected places, and that's inside the organization and outside the organization having a consistent theme. We promote from within. Most of our management team is promoted from within and developed from within. We hold actually blinded sort of case interview questions inside the company so that when people apply for internal movement within a company, the transfers, we don't know who they are who are applying. And we are able to, we think, more meritocratically assess someone's chances of moving into a role without looking at where they went to school, what their degrees are, et cetera. So I think it's the same principle outside in the artist community, which is it could be anyone who's the next genius who you're going to uncover. And same inside the company as well. I really resonated with what Obama was saying today about calling on the junior staffers at the back of the room. You just don't know, you don't know. It doesn't really, this talent doesn't it's not connected to age or experience or really anything else. It's all about the content fundamentally. And I think for that, trying to stay authentic for us is really core to fighting, I would call it tokenism.
Yeah, and what I'm getting from all your answers is that, equality is not just at face value or just externally. There's so much that goes into it. You spoke passionate, Stacey, about I need to know that you care deeply. There needs to be a sense, of community. There needs to be a sense of, are you a team player? You're not just a token. It's not just at face value. Oh, you look like you fit. You wear a skirt, so come through. Let's just have a seat and let's keep working. There's so much more to it. But because we have a few minutes left, I just want to wrap up this conversation with just concluding words from you and perhaps, we've been focusing so much on the CEOs advocating for equality and just putting the pressure on the CEO to say, you better do something, rightfully so, but CEOs work with stakeholders. You have your shareholders, you work with perhaps, whether it's government, different organizations, you work with communities, work with customers, you work with employees. What would your parting points be to everyone in this room that has that community of stakeholders in terms of how they can be better supported as CEOs in advocating for equality?
Well, it's interesting. I thought you were going to go in a different direction with it, which is...
You can offer.
Okay, I'm going to answer a question that I'm going to pretend like you asked.
Go to Los Angeles. Okay.
It's if not the CEO, then who? And as I've thought about Wall Street and what is going to drive diversity, greater diversity on Wall Street, because of course it's the right thing to do. And so where's it going to come from? And then people will say, well, the boards, it'll come from the boards. And we haven't seen it yet, where boards, it's very difficult for a board to turn a CEO in a direction he or she doesn't want to go, particularly when it comes to managing people, that core CEO role. And then I've wondered, will it be the investors, the shareholders that will decide this matters? We've seen a bit of it so far, but we haven't seen any kind of revolt around it. And I think the fact that for publicly traded companies, shareholders own the stock for months, not years. And so they view themselves more as renters than as owners of it. And so as I look around and I look at what's been successful, it really is often the CEO just deciding they're going to do it. Where it may come from going forward are people within the company deciding they are going to force the issue more. I always say to the millennials, just give us hell. Just please give us hell and come together and engage, with the leadership team on what can make the company a more appealing and attractive place to work. What will make you and your friends want to be there? And it's not working for a bunch of people who don't look like you. And it's not being there from 9 to 5, and having sort of the bed check. It's not having no flexibility. It's not having, parental leave that is only for the primary caregiver, that isn't much for a non-primary caregiver. And so, I'm hopeful that if the CEOs will decide to do it, and the millennials and the Gen Zers will force the issue because they have options. And the options that our generation didn't have as much was starting their own businesses. As the cost of starting businesses comes down and the options are there for those who want to retain talent, I'm hopeful that young people will force us into it.
Yeah.
Which question do you want to answer?
I am actually going to answer the question, I think.
Good for you. Okay,
I think.
good.
We'll see. And in that, I don't think it's also just about your company, right? Nextdoor is a 350-person company. We are small, but very mighty. But we support communities out there that are in the tens of millions. And so if we can start at, I think the neighborhood is the organic unit of change. So we see governments kind of frozen inert. We see businesses trying to come to the forefront, which I really applaud, more of that. But I actually think at a community level, if we can go out and influence people to be, in some ways, their better selves, hopefully they also then take that into the workplace. So as an example, we've spent time on something recently called Kindness Reminder, and it really came from research about bias and about tech is all about fast. Make me go fast, make me like something, respond to something, have a reaction. And when we do that, we action from our reptilian brain. And all the research shows if you can slow people down to their cognitive brain, they have learned in life that there's actually good out of pulling back their natural bias and actually being a much more inclusive person. And so we inserted something even into how people post that slows them down. It's kind of the antithesis of like what people will tell you to make your business model spin faster, but we think it's worth it because it actually impacts all of the communities out there. And at a time where we're going into probably a pretty incivil period of the US with an election next year, we're seeing it right now in the UK. I just came out of Australia. There's just a lot of tension in the world.
Yeah.
Can we go back to how do we bring people out of kind of their corners where they've gotten polarized to and do that through our product and our companies? Because that to me is a source of huge force multiplying change rather than just trying to, say, influence the 350 amazing people at Nextdoor that I feel already have kind of a core value. I want to hit the billions out there that live in every neighborhood of the world. Small challenge.
Small challenge. So I have three thoughts. The first is to be courageous. CEOs, any leader, there's never been a more important time in my lifetime in our society that we have to speak up and lead from the front and be willing to not tolerate the things that have allowed us to even have a conversation around why don't we have the equality that we're seeking. Number two is to get proximate. The referrals happen with the people that you know, so get to know some people who aren't like you.
Yeah.
And then maybe you'll refer somebody who isn't like you, and maybe your company is then therefore more diverse. And the third is to encourage all voices. We will only achieve the level of innovation that's possible in technology and in our world if we actually seek to hear all the voices that need to be heard. So I would say encourage all voices.
Right.
As an entrepreneur, I have to say, take a risk, which is believe in the power of humans to develop and to change. I've seen it. Artists develop massively in the Minted community through repeated interaction with other community members. And people have been transformed from being starting artists to being very experienced. And so I've seen massive change for the past 13 years within the company and outside the company in human development, things I would not have felt were possible. And then second, actually believe in the power of community, which is that people are able to help each other grow through feedback and through change and through evolution. And so if you're leading a company and you're a CEO, leverage the community internally and externally to help grow your workforce and take a chance on the undeveloped and see where it can lead you. Because I think it's pretty startling how clever humans really are and how much we can actually develop, how much potential we have. So those are the two things I would advocate in terms of achieving equality.
Well, thank you so much, Sheila, Stacey, Sarah, Sally, thank you so much. I have to say that in the years that I have broadcasted and hosted such conversations, I have never had a conversation with all women and their names are starting with the letter S. I just had to put it out there, but you guys are just fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me and sharing, and thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me.